So this was probably the most difficult project I've worked on so far, and it's actually taught me quite a bit about electronics work in general. So it's been a really fun project, and it's obviously far from completed because it's not enclosed, obviously. But I wanted to, before I put it all back together, kind of explain what the process of this was. So what you're looking at here, this is the Panasonic A1WSX that is made by Panasonic. It was an MSX2 Plus machine that was pretty popular, mainly for the aesthetics. They call it kind of like the Darth Vader of MSX machines. And it is a very, very cool one. This one arrived many years ago, not working, and it was actually missing a floppy drive, which would have gone on the side here. And not only was it missing the floppy drive, it was also missing like the ribbon cable and everything that would connect to it. And these were old belt-driven drives, so they weren't anything that would have been useful anyway, long term. But fortunately, you know, we live in a day of age now where we can have floppy disk emulators, which is driven by this board right here called a GoTech. The GoTech then just takes a USB drive, lots of just disk images of the games that you want to play in sequence. You can name them whatever you want, but for now I just have them as disk A001 and so forth. Fortunately, I have a friend in the MSX community, his name is Alex, who was into making a lot of these boards himself, as far as like adapters and ribbon cables. So I was able to get him to fashion me a ribbon cable after taking pictures of the board, and he made me a custom GoTech floppy emulator, which takes all the pins and voltage from that and puts it into this board, and then that board then connects and feeds the GoTech, which then feeds this right here, which is going to be basically going out to like a display. And so the display would normally look like something that would just be very generic with like a number screen. I think it looks like this typically. So you'd only be able to see what disk number you were on, but you can actually upgrade that to an OLED. In this particular case, it's basically going to print some of the data on this OLED when I were to turn this on and it were to read the disk. But you can actually take it a bit step further, actually. You can actually have it feed the signal into something called a blue pill board, which is this guy here. And with some proper flashing and modifications, you'll see that I've got some capacitors on there and everything. I followed a guide that my friend actually created, Alex, and he helped me out quite a bit on this because there was a lot of different things that had to be troubleshot. But basically, it takes the signal that would come from the GoTech readout that would actually be fed to the OLED, and it puts it into this board and then encodes it into something called the FlashFloppy OSD, which stands for on-screen display. So what's going on here is that it feeds some of the data pins and sync signal pins from ultimately here into this board, and it then attaches directly to RGB and sync. That's the red, blue, and green wires, and the yellow is the sync. And then that's just ground, and this other one is 5 volts. And that ribbon cable is actually going underneath the side of this board here and is tied directly, it's hard to see, but to this little chip here, this little IC. That is the MSX video encoder chip, which basically takes all the signals that you would normally feed to it and then outputs it to the outputs here at the back. Now, the MSX supports different audio out and video out connections. It's going to be hard to see, but you'll see here one of the connections that it has the ability to do is RGB out. And the cleanest way to get a picture for RGB out is to basically have a SCART cable. Unfortunately, this is a Japanese system. They don't use the same protocol as typical European SCART. They use something called RGB21. Sometimes it's referred to as JP RGB21. And those pins look exactly like a SCART cable, but they are slightly different. So what I ended up having to do was first test this using just regular old composite, and then eventually when I got it close, I had to make a custom cable to then feed into something like this, which upscales it and then puts it to HDMI. So the SCART cable here is basically 20 pins. They call it 21 pins, but they're counting the metal shield here as one of the pins. But yeah, it looks like that. Pretty neat. You'll see that there's quite a bit of work going on in there. Mostly all the cables that are being fed from this 8-pin DIN connector in the back are tied to this, and then there's a whole bunch of ground wires that are being used as well. There's a few resistors in there to get the proper voltages. I'm not entirely sure the caps are needed. They came like that, but they're just, you know, they're there for some safety precautions and stuff. So, yeah, so I you know, after a lot of different effort here, I finally have the thing working, and it's pretty awesome. The idea that I wanted to do with this was I wanted to be able to play this on my projector, which uses HDMI input, and I want to be able to switch the discs virtually, but I don't want to have to stand next to the machine to look at this little tiny screen to see what disc I'm on. So what this process does is it allows for the same message that would appear on this screen to appear through the video encoder chip out to the TV, so that you can actually see a message temporarily pop up, and you can see what disc is loading, so forth. One other cool modification that we did on this one was we added some more RAM to it. Check that out. These beasts. So to add, I think it was a, I forget what it is now. I think it's 256. It might be 512. I can't remember. But one of the mods is something where you can, easily make a quick mod to it. The other one is a little bit more difficult. But you'll see here on the reverse side, it's going to this pin right here on the back, right up here. And you'll see here on this side, I actually did it on the wrong pin first, which could have probably messed the whole thing up, but fortunately I was able to repair it. I was looking at it upside down, and then I was like, oops. And so I had to undo that work and stick it on the right pin. But it's all good, because this was a kind of a beater machine anyway. It was really more of an experiment. So yeah, basically it's going through an unused hole there to the other side of the board, and it connects to these two big beefy chips here. So it's great because now the whole thing is working as intended. Make sure you get all these wires out from underneath this thing. Don't want to short anything. But basically, yeah, it's ready now. So all I have to do is, make sure that the monitor is on, which it should be. There it goes. And I don't have a keyboard hooked up to this. There's a keyboard that has ribbon cables that fit into these two slots, but it gets in the way, so I don't keep it hooked up. But in order for this to load, you do have to have this top connected with these two. That's why I'm not like completely removing it, because if I were to boot it up without those being connected, it would do some crazy stuff. It would do like a demo, but it wouldn't play anything else. So yeah, it's finally working, and it took a while to get to this point. You can see all the LEDs light up here, and you'll see that it actually shows something on the screen there briefly. This is a game called Aleste, which was made by Compile. It's Japanese only. It's a pretty cool shooter. And you'll see that I'm on the first disc of that game. But if I wanted to switch discs, all I have to do is hit this button here. And it should switch discs. Let me see if I can reset it. Yeah, it's 256K. And it looks like I'm not actually seeing the picture now, which is interesting. It means that there's probably some kind of, here's the problem. Right there, sync signals came offline. So I need to plug that back in, and all of a sudden we should be seeing things again here. So definitely getting the OLED to work here. You can see it. But for some reason, I'm still not seeing it. Let's make sure that everything is nice and tight. So let's reset it again. See if we fixed it. Interesting. There it goes. So there must be a loose connection somewhere. I was like to say, that was pretty frustrating that all I did was move it a little bit and it messed up. But we'll make sure that that doesn't happen again. There it goes. And you have to do some tricks to stabilize the picture. That was kind of and it only lasts for a little bit, like while it's loading the disk, and then it goes away. You can set all of that in the config file for how long you want the OSD to stay on the screen. But it's controlled with these potentiometers right here. Basically, this controls the C-Sync, and this controls the R, G, and B. And you kind of want to leave them at the same levels, or so I've been told, because you don't want to overpower the RGB settings. But yeah, that was a fun project for sure. The SCART cable gave me a lot of trouble because I couldn't quite figure out. It kept blanking, which means that I was getting the audio, but I wasn't getting anything else. I wasn't getting any picture. And I finally isolated the issue was a C-Sync pin was coming in too hot voltage-wise. The peak-to-peak voltage it was expecting was higher than what it was expecting, so I had to take I think I used a 470 ohm resistor, and that's that black thing right there that's covered. Let's see if I can get a little closer without it being blurry. But yeah, it's basically a shrink-wrapped 470 ohm capacitor that's in line with pin 20 on the SCART. And then once I did that, it worked fine. So yeah, everything works great now. Happy to finally button this up. We'll have to somehow very carefully take this to the basement where I've got my projector set up. and make sure that the OSD still looks pretty good, because if I need to make any last minute tweaks on this guy, I want to basically do it on the monitor I'm intending to use it with before I put everything back in this case. So wish me luck. That's it's been months and months and months of trying to get this to work, and I'm glad to say that I did not blow it up, although I could have many times.